Okay.
Hi, Mom.
All right. Hello, my name is Nicola.
I'm Dirk.
Hi. So we're here to talk a little bit about Dirk's course coming up. It's called Your Health Blueprint. And this has been in the works for a while, right? And so he has one coming up here in Seattle on April 29th. And we're going to be going over structure today, which is one of the themes that you go over in your course.
Right.
Yes. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you was there's a lot of misinformation about how do we keep our structure, our body in alignment and healthy. One of the really common ideas that I hear all the time is like strengthening your muscles to keep you straight and upright, or massaging your muscles or stretching. Can you talk about that a little bit? Is that something that's correct or helpful for us, or?
No, that is completely forbidden topic. I can't talk about that.
Okay. All right.
I absolutely. But I'll say that the seminar, Your Health Blueprint,
Yes.
has really 5 parts to it.
Okay.
The main part, in some ways, is the blueprint itself. Mm-hmm. Because whether we realize it or not, we are running our lives based on an internal blueprint that most of us are not even aware of. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important to learn something about that and start to find out how do we address that. And then there's what I call the foundations of health: structure, condition, and nourish. Mm-hmm. And then the 5th part of the seminar is integration. How do we take all that and bring it into our lives? So having said that, the structure piece, like you said, is our bodies, right? Mm-hmm. The physical structure piece is our bodies. And a lot of how our bodies show up in the world is through our posture. Yeah. And so a lot of people are trying to fix their posture through exactly what you said, improving their strength and holding themselves upright and stretching and blah, blah, blah. And all of that can make us feel better. Being stronger can definitely help us hold up our muscles, our bodies easier when we have stronger muscles. You know, to lift 20 pounds with a tiny muscle is a lot harder than lifting 20 pounds with a big, strong muscle. Mm-hmm. So strength and all that stuff plays an important role. But when it comes to health, you'll find little old ladies, little old men that are pretty darn healthy, but not particularly strong. And you'll find people who are pretty healthy, but not necessarily like going to run around the block at any kind of blazing speed. So health and fitness are very different. Having said that, you know, Charlie Brown long ago said this is Charlie Brown's depressed stance. So we all know that, you know, this contributes to, you know, depression and whatnot. Just this posture, you know, as we age, people age, they get this posture. Well, that has a 44% increase in likelihood of death from clogged arteries in the heart. Just correlated with that posture.
Interesting.
Because as we shift our posture and our posture breaks down, when our brain stem and our head and all that is pulling on the brain stem and on the spinal cord, and it's closing off the movement of the nerves or the flow of the nerves. Not to mention the movement of the heart, because there's compression, the lungs as well. Shuts down our abdomen, so nothing has as much room as it could if we had good posture. So structure relates a lot to posture. It also relates to how, and shifts around how we normally look at people, because we normally look at people from the outside in, right? We see our skin, see their faces, whatever, and we think, oh yes, so there's the skin and how they look, and then underneath that there's, you know, their muscles and whatnot, and then there's bones, and then all the organs and whatever else, right?
Yeah.
So that viewpoint is just one viewpoint, and it's an outside-in viewpoint. What I do in Your Health Blueprint is I switch it around to help people really understand. You know, you put the queen and the king in the middle of the castle, right? The most important, precious things go in the middle of the castle. They're surrounded by a fortress, and that is our brain and spinal cord.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I build the body from the inside out and help people understand that. Because that's really what needs to be protected.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, can you speak a little bit about, well, I know all of the answers to this, but.
Oh, you know everything.
No. When I was working for you, you were still focusing on, when I first met you were a chiropractor and then you became an ABC practitioner. Can you talk a little bit about how those two experiences there informed your knowledge here with your health blueprint?
Awesome. So yeah, as you said earlier, like I've been working on this for a long time. This idea actually came to me 30 years ago. And as I think I said in the last video, it's really like what of what we learn in school, of all this stuff, what is actually useful in terms of like my work as a chiropractor. And so it's been a long time in the making. And when I started off chiropractic care, I did very standard chiropractic care that we were taught in school, that I gravitated to. And at some point I got very frustrated with it. Because it didn't seem consistent and predictable. So that was one. It didn't seem consistent and predictable. And it didn't have enough of a logical flow to me. And I built things with my hands, built furniture. I built this couch years ago, actually when I was in chiropractic school. Wow. And so I'm always looking at like what makes sense from a physical standpoint. And it didn't quite work for me at some point. And that's when I was actually going to quit chiropractic, and I was thinking about doing something else. And then somehow or other I learned about advanced biostructural correction. And advanced biostructural correction has been around for about 30 years. And it's based on an understanding that your bones in your body, especially in your spine, they're stacked vertically, right? And they're supposed to sit in a certain relationship. But when they move, that shifts. And in all directions, your body can shift it back. If you turn right, you can untwist, right, left, forward, backwards, bend backwards, forward. You can do all of that. But when the bones get shifted forward, your body cannot pull them backwards on its own. There's nothing solid behind me for a muscle to pull backwards. Yeah. Which is why everybody ages like this. Because the bones slide forward, the body can't actually straighten it. So instead, it uses muscles to try to bend something else and try to keep us upright reasonably. So that answers the question in a sense of why strengthening doesn't really help, because it doesn't really bring back the normal relationships of these bones from a structural standpoint. Now, has it made people help their back pain go away and this, that, and the other thing? Absolutely. But from a pure structural relationship standpoint, it doesn't really address that. And stretching can help people feel good in the moment, but studies show that it decreases athletic performance. The longer we stretch and hold, the more damage it's going to do. And when a person understands and gets that stretching can pull a bone in a direction your body can't self-correct, then there you go. Which probably sounds crazy to most people listening to this video, because stretching feels good and yada, yada, yada. But I get people off of stretching and they do really, really well. I actually see patients in Yelm, Washington, down near Olympia once a week, which is about an hour and 20-minute drive for me, because I had a yoga instructor, 12-year yoga instructor, who got into yoga in order to, help with her health issues. And after 12 years, she found me and realized in a very few visits that, I was doing all the things that yoga had promised to do for her and never did. In fact, she was getting worse and worse. And that's not an uncommon story. People start off with yoga, I'll just do it once a week. And that felt good. And then after a while, once a week doesn't really cut it, so they need to do it twice a week to feel better. And then they need to do it 3 times a week. And then they need to do it, as a daily practice. And that's all of that is just to manage pain. And that's not what yoga was originally. Yoga is a meditation technique. It was not a stretching technique. But it's all been distorted, and it's not to say that all yoga does, that same kind of stretching and, pulling on the bones, because some of them they're very mild. But nonetheless, as a generalization.
It's so fascinating, because it's such a widespread idea that like stretching is what you do, and stretching is how you limber up or get ready for any kind of physical activity. So that's just such an interesting thought. I mean, it makes sense to me now because I've been educated on this for how many years listening to you, and it makes sense. But for anyone just listening to this, I can see how that kind of goes a little against what we've all been taught.
Yeah, somebody was just sharing me that in Europe, the professional teams, they don't stretch anymore. They all do dynamic warm-up.
Really?
Which is hopping, skipping, jumping, moving, but not static stretching at all. Yeah.
Why do you think that's not more widely taught, you think?
I think it's coming. I think people are starting to figure it out, but who knows? People get stuck.
True.
Right. But from the Your Health Blueprint standpoint, though,
yes,
this is all really important because doing those things, like I said, you'll find little old ladies, little old men that are really quite healthy, but they don't do anything extraordinary. So why are they living a healthy life? They may not eat particularly well, probably not particularly bad, but they may not eat particularly well, follow the latest trends. They probably don't work out to the latest trends. They this, that, and the other thing that's not the latest trends, and yet they're healthier by far than other people.
Yeah.
And to me, it's because of their blueprint inside.
Yeah.
And that blueprint can shift, and once we shift the blueprint, then the external world shifts.
Right.
And it can shift very quickly. And that's really key, and that's why the blueprint part is so important. But it also shifts our structure. It'll shift our bodies, it'll shift our attitude, which shifts our posture just inherently.
Interesting. So when we start to get in touch with that inner blueprint, it all naturally starts to follow.
If we do the work to change the blueprint.
Oh, you mean I gotta do work?
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to change your blueprint, right?
Yeah.
So the blueprint model is the blueprint is like the software to a computer, right? Our bodies, our structure is like the hardware.
Okay.
All right, but unlike a computer, in this case, our software actually literally changes what our hardware looks like and how it functions.
So when you're talking about hardware in this sense, you're not just talking about our bodily structure like your skeleton or anything like that, which is what we were talking about before with ABC and posture. You're talking about everything else.
I'm talking about all of it.
All of it.
All of it. Our gut, right? Our heart, our voice, how well we see, hear, everything. Our hormones, our thyroid, how everything works is impacted by our blueprint.
Fascinating.
And our structure impacts all of that as well, which is why it is a key component to all of this, to understanding this.
Which will all be covered in the
exactly in this seminar,
and how it all integrates and how it all is connected, because it just, the more you learn about this and the more I learn about this, the more it's like you can't separate them from one another. It's all part of the whole.
Right. And then also in the course, it's like, well, you have materials like that help you go in and find out, well, what is my blueprint? How do I find out what my blueprint is? How do I change that? And it's easy to see that we have trouble with our blueprint, like how many times have, you said, I'm going to start out to work out and I'm going to train for a 5K run, or I'm going to work out, 3 times a week in the new year, or I'm going to take this physical thing on, and then it gets hard and we fail and we quit and we don't pick it back up again, and on and on and on, right? That's all blueprint. Or maybe you're a person who you're like, I'm going to run a 5K, I'll move mountains, but darn it, I'm going to run that 5K and I'm going to do it this time, and I'm going to make the training happen. And the training happens, you run the 5K in whatever time you set, that's your blueprint. The blueprint isn't all bad. The blueprint is also responsible for all the things that we do that we are proud of, that we are pleased with, right? So it's not like the blueprint is all bad. And it's fun to find out, it's just that the stuff that works for us in our lives, probably don't need to change that if it's working for us.
Right.
Right? If we find joy and happiness and true satisfaction in it, whatever it is, then we don't need to change that. So there's nothing to work on. It's like you don't fix a car that runs great, right? But the minute there's a problem with the car you want it worked, or the bicycle, or the whatever else in your life, it's like, oh yeah, this needs some attention. And so it is with us.
Okay. So, just shifting a bit back, why did you decide to focus on structure particularly? Because that's kind of the thread that led you to where you are now a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to focus on that as the vehicle towards health to start?
Oh, that's a good question. So I grew up very physical. I was just a very kinetic kid. I'm more kinetic, and I learn more by this than I do by, I'm not auditory like, some people, they listen to everything and they remember everything just by hearing it. That's not my thing. I'm very visual as well, but I'm really kinetic. And I like to fix things. I started working in bike shops when I was 14. So, and then when I was 15, I was told I could die any minute from strenuous activity because I was born with a defective heart valve. And then I took up bicycle racing, and then at 27 I had my first open heart surgery, and I thought I was going to die. I was just like, because I was like, I was miserable. I had a lot of depression, so if I died, I died. I was incredibly lonely and isolated, and I was like, if I die, I die. That's fine. I wasn't out to kill myself per se, but I was going to do what I wanted to do in that regard. And anyway, when I was 27 and I had open heart surgery, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to live, so what am I going to do for a living? And I had a finance degree, but I didn't really want to use that. And so I was like, I had a friend in high school that was a chiropractor, a brother-in-law that's a chiropractor. I was like, oh, this makes sense. It's physical, it's tangible. It'll teach me things I don't know now, take me in a whole different direction. I get to do something that's like physical all day long and correcting people and helping people. So that made complete sense to me. How things fit together makes total sense to me. Yeah. So that was kind of it.
Actually, I've never heard that story from start to finish. That's
amazing. Yeah.
So back to structure as part of your course. And for the people listening, what are some ways to start getting in touch with your structure? Do you have any kind of like 101 beginner points about that?
Absolutely. Come to the seminar.
Yeah.
Come to the seminar.
That's a great answer.
And number two is don't just notice your posture. Just notice your body. Don't change it. Don't judge it. Oh, my shoulders are slumped. Oh, my head is this, that, or the other thing. Oh, my belly's this. Don't judge it. Just notice it. And see if you can notice it almost from outside yourself. Like take some part outside of yourself and just notice your body. Notice how you are in your body in any given moment without judging it. Just say, oh, well, this is this. This is how I am. I'm sitting here like this. My shoulders are doing this. My hands are doing this. My weight's doing this. And just notice what's there. And then feel what's there. Without trying to fix anything. That would be just a brilliant place for everyone to start.
That actually brought up something for me, one last question, which is not on what I wrote down. So I don't know what's going to happen. For people that maybe struggle with feeling their own body and feeling what's in their body, do you have anything for them? Because I think for me, I'll talk for myself, like sitting still and actually feeling into my body was a really, really big thing for me to get into. Because I didn't realize that I was actually disconnected from my body for a very long time. So for anyone out there who is, maybe disconnected or has some difficulty really going in, do you have anything that you would share with them?
Well, I have a lot of different, there's a lot I could talk about and a lot I could share on that regard.
That is a big question, actually. I just realized as I asked that.
That's right. How much of it is legal? No. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So if you at some level, we were all abandoned when we were children. Mm-hmm. We were not seen. We were upset and we were told not to be upset. Or we were too excited and we were told not to be so excited. Or a huge number of ways that people are abandoned as children, right? Sent to your room, a lot, once. It doesn't matter. Abandoned emotionally by a parent not standing up for you in a situation, or a teacher, or somebody else started a fight that you were in some way, shape, or form, or a squabble, and an adult came in, and instead of finding out who started it and really doing their job, they made you both, get punished. They punished you both, right? All of that can be some form of abandonment. And Mark Passio talks about this, and I think it's just phenomenal. So just the idea of coming in and feeling ourselves can be difficult. And people say, oh yeah, but that's really hard for me. And so they check out and they go out here. So I would invite you to just, with that, just noticing, and you may be thinking, well, yeah, I was never abandoned, my childhood was fine, blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. And who am I to say what anybody else is? Although I would just say that in my own life and working with all the people that I have, I know it's a very, very common theme, whether they would use that word or not. All right? So, feeling myself is the opposite of abandoning myself.
Wow.
And that's really hard to do when my blueprint is to abandon myself because that's what was role modeled to me. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. And if this sinks in for you, I love it. Take it. If it doesn't sink in for you, I hope it does soon. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That was a really good place, I think, to close that. Thank you for sharing a little bit about structure with us.
Absolutely.
Your health blueprint is taking place here in Seattle in Dirk's lovely home on April 29th. If you would like to register, I think we have some limited spots in person. And so we'll post the number at the bottom of this video, or we'll have that information readily available so you can register. And I just have to say, I said it in the last video, I know I've been in this world of yours a little bit for a while, but kind of seeing it grow and change and morph and knowing all of the parts to it, it's really quite a life-changing course, and it's really brilliant. So
thank you.
I encourage everybody to go. So any other final closing thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, I just thought about this morning. A couple things. One is the idea for your health blueprint, that it's the big picture of health personalized. And the big picture of health isn't more of it's not more of, which so many of us think it is. That's first. Second of all, this course is really about service. It's about service to whoever takes the course. And that is really what it's about, because until I made some drastic shifts in my life and was able to break through some things that I just had no clue about, I wasn't able to. And it took me a lot of gumption. There was no clear path. There were many paths, but there was no clear, nothing kind of brought it all together for me. I didn't, maybe it's out there, maybe, but nobody talked about like health and my inner world and my outer world, and how does this relate to exercise and nutrition, and how does it all fit together? Nobody that I'm aware of is doing that, right? In relationship to ourselves, right? So that's my having been in the world that I was for so long in terms of structure and sort of maybe the standard mode of health, and then stepping, off the ledge into a whole different world, allowed me to bring to this course a wholeness that I would never have ever been able to bring before. And because that has been such a challenge, because I didn't have anybody come in and show me the picture. I just think that anybody that's interested, that I could help them see a much bigger picture much quicker, would be a good thing to do. So.
Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you at your health blueprint. Bye.
Bye-bye.